Hi, I'm John with Orange ModWorks, and this is going to be an install guide and troubleshooting video for the Longstrike Massacre kit. Okay, we didn't have any particular problems to address with the Longstrike, and hopefully none will come up. So this will be a general install and things to look out for type video. So the first thing you want to do is remove all of your screws and set them aside. And now, if your Longstrike is brand new, you'll notice that the priming handle does not come off very easily. It's not designed to be removed once it's installed. But I found an easy way to do that is to take two flathead screwdrivers and work them underneath the handle. This one's already been removed. Work them underneath the handle and push down to lift it straight up. And that will minimize your chance of damaging the shell. Another way to do it is to take a claw peen hammer and try and pry it out, but being able to pry from two sides simultaneously, pretty much guarantees you won't accidentally crack your shell. But in this case, we've already removed this much time, so it comes off pretty easily. And from here, your shell should split pretty easily. And remove the stock just to save space. And I'm going to be taking out these prototype parts and replacing them with some brand new Massacre parts. So obviously you will probably start with stock orange internals and non-metallic catch pieces, but the first step is to remove the trigger retention plate, or the spring retention plate, and spring, and trigger catch, being careful not to lose the trigger catch spring, which I have already taken out. Set those screws aside. Do not lose these screws. They're hard to come by. From here, you can remove your old stock internals and toss them aside, but you may want to remove the bolt sled lock. And be careful not to lose these tiny screws. But if you do lose them, you can find them in Ace Hardware. At least that's where we've had luck finding small screws, and they're micro wood screws. Take your Massacre parts and prepare them for install. And the one issue that we've had come up with the Longstrike kit so far is the pin has a tendency to sort of walk itself out on one side, and I think that is due to one-handed priming attempts, or when you're bringing the bolt sled forward, most people push with one hand, and there's no reason not to, but you get a little bit of side-to-side wiggle, and that sort of slowly inches the pin out. It's not really a big deal. I've never had one fall completely out, and it's really easy to fix. You can just take your finger through the jam door and pop it back into place. But if you want, getting a tiny bit of hot glue down there, only on one side, don't glue both sides, will prevent that from coming out. And as long as you just glue one side, you can still punch the pin out if you need to disassemble your kit. So this is the stock bolt sled lock. It will fit in all of the Longstrike bolt sleds. Unlike the Recon, as far as we know, there's only one Longstrike variation. And these screws will tap into the polycarbonate relatively easily, and they will hold very tight. And then it'll just drop back into place. And the spring retention piece. And this goes large hook up small hook down. And at this point, go ahead and screw on the spring retention plate. And one more thing. So far we haven't had any cases of this, but just in case, I might as well cover this now. If you pre-ordered and have a metal trigger, and when you install it, for whatever reason, if it does not slide smoothly, you can just take a file and check, well, first check visually for burrs that may be hanging inside here. We addressed this issue by making this hole larger than the stock, so just in case there's any extra material that didn't get removed during polishing, it would still move freely, but there's always a small chance that it might not. So it should be very easy to move the trigger. Trigger spring. There we go. And the tricky one, trigger catch spring. This one has a nasty habit of shooting out. So what we're going to do is let the spring just sit up here, uncompressed. Okay, when you're reassembling your blaster, be careful that the dart tooth spring isn't hanging out, because what will happen is you can pinch it and you'll end up like that. And this spring still works, but it's really hard to put back in the blaster. So I managed to find a replacement. Alright, just like that. Put the shell together. You may have to go into the jam door to push on the bolt sled to make sure it goes into the rails. Okay, and now we have our trigger catch spring and push it underneath the shell. And if you're putting your shell together and it feels like it's not snapping into place down here, just actuate the magazine release and it will line up both halves. Because not only does it have to nest together here, but these two orange slides have to mesh together. Alright, so that's it for install. I'm going to put the screws back in. Alright, so this Longstrike is now fully assembled. And I left the jam door out because it's much easier to clear jams on the fly that way. And if you notice the pin poking out, it's very accessible from here. You don't have to take your blaster apart. You can just reach in and push it with like the tip of a pen or pencil or something like that. However, there's one issue with the Longstrike that seems to be popping up, and it's a safety issue that will come up if you've removed your locks. And I'm going to use this Longstrike to demonstrate because we're in the process of destruction testing the kit that's currently installed. And this is, now the parts will not stand up to this type of usage. They're not designed to handle that. While the bolt sled and breech are stationary, the impact from the plunger traveling only about 2.5 to 3 inches is easy for this system to handle. However, if you prime, and while the plunger and the priming handle are rearward, if you pull the trigger, everything will slam forward very quickly. And the combined mass of the bolt sled, breech, plunger all slamming forward at the same time and hitting the dart tooth area is enough, the force from that is enough to damage the breech where it's pinned to the bolt sled, because the top of the breech is quite thin. just due to the nature of this system, how the blaster functions, because it has to be thin enough for the magazine to go in and out easily and to fit this gap here. So when it all slams forward, it puts a lot of stress on the breech right at this area, surrounding this. Where it attaches to the bolt sled, it's reinforced by the bolt sled. But under here, there's nothing preventing that from being ripped out. And it's happened in our testing one time, and one of our promoters and affiliates who we work with has brought this up as well. So I'll show you what it looks like just this once, but never ever do this. Also, it's dangerous because if you have removed your jam door, if you pull the trigger and your hands are anywhere near this area, or even, you know, if your blaster gets smacked real hard on top, causing the trigger catch to disengage, that could really hurt your fingers. I don't know if it'd break your fingers, but it would not be fun at all. It'd be like having your hand caught in a mousetrap. So here's what that looks like. Yeah, that's a bad day. It puts undue stress on this part of the breech and is just a safety hazard. So be aware of that and don't ever do it. If you are worried that that could happen, you can go ahead and leave the trigger lock installed. And if you want to deprime your blaster to avoid dry firing, instead of just pulling the trigger here, it's actually worse than a dry fire. You can just hold the priming handles and pull the trigger with your middle finger, pinky, or whatever, releasing it, and let it forward nice and easy, just like that. So just be aware of that and be careful and don't do it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and thanks for watching.